We have a great panel here today, and I'll do a quick round of introduction before starting to shape the conversation. We'll have with us today, Domenico Scala, who is the President of Basel Area Business and Innovation. We have Dr. Johannes Eisenhut, Managing Director of SENN Development. We have my colleague Karin Crisanto, Head of Innovation, Space and Infrastructure. We have Dr. Professor Hans-Florian Zeilhofer, Associate Vice President, Innovation at University of Basel. And we have Anja Riedle, Head of Smart City at SBB. So welcome to all. And before jumping into the conversation, I wanted to frame a little bit the panel discussion around two things. One, what we really want to discuss here is how to enable distributed work. And what is distributed work? It's work that is becoming extremely efficient, more efficient than within a company. And when you think about the lighthouse examples of this, it's probably Automatic with 2T, leading a software company, which has been a distributed company since its inception. So the CEO, his name is Matt Mullenweg, is extremely vocal about the different steps you need to go through to become a distributed company. And of course, we have step 0, which is the step where you cannot outsource, where you cannot do remote work. Could be a barista, it could also be a lab tech in a wet lab doing life science research. And then you can further and further distribute the work and make the work seamless outside of your organization until you reach what they call the nirvana, where when you become more efficient and effective as a company without any infrastructure. So Automatic doesn't have any physical infrastructure. They take advantage of the talents from around the world and work around the clock, asynchronously taking advantage of the sun going up and down around the world. So that is distributed work. And we have a great example here locally of a company which is brave, Novartis, where we stand here, that has announced to these 110,000 associates that they can, starting for very soon, work from wherever they want. And this will, of course, be an experiment for Novartis to move to this distributed work. So we'll talk about distributed work as a hypothesis on where we will go for the region. And we have 3 angles that we could discuss on distributed work. We could think about the macroeconomic angle. Will there still be work in the future? What is the impact of automation on work? But this will leave aside, maybe for our next panel discussion. And we'll focus now on what is really important to us and how do we respond to this? How do we make distributed work happen, around the infrastructure we need, about the ways of working, about how we enable also the employees and associates to work in this distributed work. And we'll take also a stab at thinking about how our cluster is very relevant in this future of work. In this context, about distributed work and really thinking about how we organize and the role of clusters, I would like to open the discussion with a very open question also to the panel. So can we really work from everywhere in the future?
I always think it's interesting that the companies who bring us the tools for distributed work, they all praise Silicon Valley as the place where they are, where they're rooted, where the talent pool is, where they have exchange and serendipity. So it must be that you need both.
You need both what?
Well, you need a place where everything happens, where people exchange. And then, of course, they wouldn't be developing tools for distributed work if they didn't believe in the future of distributed work. So they're kind of not, doing what they preach, but I think in a good way, because I think there's a complementarity to things. I think in real life, one thing rarely quickly replaces another, but they first become complementary.
Anja, perspective on that?
I also agree on this point, and I think the balance is what actually makes the difference in the end. We've all seen the extreme of working virtually over the past few weeks, and we're now slowly coming back to work. I just don't know how long actually, but we see the benefits of meeting up physically again. So I think it's the balance basically that makes things happen, and it's not 100% distributed work, but also, or maybe call it distributed work, but have a physical element to it.
It's kind of nice how the word serendipity also is showing up. This is something I grew up in New Jersey as a kid when I was like 10 years old, and that was the last time I heard the word until it popped up half a year ago for me. And so it's like a childhood word. In German, it's like Hans im Glück, Situation. So where you stumble upon things. And I really think it's very cool that this is moving into corporate into corporate language, basically.
Well, I think if we come back to the current situation where we have had a crisis, a pandemic crisis, I think one of the good news about that is that crises tend to lead to binary outcomes. And one of the binary outcome has affected the workspace. And I think those countries and those companies who have in the past invested in infrastructure, in adequate workspace, in technology, they have been able to cope with the current situation better than others. They were able to organize home offices, they were able to organize distributed work. So I think whether it is sustainable or not, and what balance it is sustainable, I think the jury is out. But the good news is we have been coping with a crisis situation. The binary situation has led to a positive outcome in terms of coping with the workspace. And therefore, I think economies and clusters like Basel, Switzerland, who have been at the high end in terms of technology, skill base, and so on, have done much better than other areas. So, which then comes back to the lessons learned, is you investing in skills, in technology, in workspace, in capabilities, in good times, and you will benefit from it when you need it, hopefully not with the next crisis. And now the jury is, of course, out, and some people around here in the panel are much more better skilled to know how that will be actually playing out in terms of sustainability and organizational wise. But good news is we have coped well here in Switzerland, and in particular also the cluster of Basel, to cope with the situation currently.
Maybe as a follow-up to you, do you think the role of the cluster will change in the future?
I personally don't think so. And if you, without going into the issue about, what how technology will affect global workforce, so the economic impact, I think we have two situations which are very big. One is we will have shifts of people doing tasks today which will do different tasks in 15 years. And there will be a huge movement. And there are studies out there which say that the workforce will shift to new tasks within 5 to 15% of the entire workforce. So huge numbers. This could be 75 to 350 million people worldwide moving from tasks they do today to different tasks they do in the future. That is a huge challenge for economies and for businesses. And the other element is, of course, the migration among these clusters. If you look at Europe, where we belong to, Europe is in essence 13 to 15 economic clusters, and the workforce is 20% in clusters that are growing, 50% of the workforce is in clusters that are stable, and 30% of workforce are in clusters which one would assume are going to decline. So I don't know what net will come out, but you can already see that with the movement to new tasks and with the movement to successful clusters, there will be huge mobility issues going on. And the luck we are in Basel is we are in a very good cluster in terms of technology, in terms of capabilities, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of education. So I think I believe personally we are in a winning cluster, but it will not come without efforts and it will not come without investments.
I think clusters will become even more important in the future. I mean, so there's like macro clusters that you're referring to where Switzerland has been winning out because we showed how we could cope with the crisis. And again, we're the safe haven, we're the island. And that's very attractive for any company. But then I think also thematical clusters like innovation parks or biotech clusters, etc., have really, really strong arguments in this situation because the companies have only started working together. I mean, this culture of, two competitors working together in the pre-competitive phase, this is new, especially in Switzerland, I think. And so this has only started. And then on a personal level, what we're facing right now is, you know, with homework, home office being plausible and everything, the workplace is in competition. So there's one more competitor to your daily desk, which is your home desk or the desk in the mountains or whatever. And so what motivates you to go to work? It's being around people that you think are interesting. And you know, great minds think alike. So who are you going to want to spend your day with? Eventually, you'll want to talk to fellow scientists. You're going to want to talk to fellow lawyers. You're going to want to talk to people who are, you know, intelligent in the same way you are, maybe. And so I think this will be an additional motivation to go to work, even though you could work at home if you are in a thematic cluster, in a talent pool. And then if it's, you know, built well, and if it has a good restaurant, that's where you spend your office day.
I would like to move to Hans-Florian. You live and breathe research and innovation. So what is your take on this transformation?
This morning, I met the patient more than 6 months ago. He couldn't come to hospital. It was a tumor patient. He couldn't do a follow-up. And when I told him, you're still free of recurrency, no tumor progression, he had tears in his eyes and was crying. So he missed me and the hospital environment. And in the last weeks, I tried with friends in the cluster and in the Wer starts a cluster and Wer ends a cluster. It was also with research units in US and in Bangalore, where we started to serve exactly these people who couldn't come to follow-ups with gamification, and so that in gaming, they show us and bring us their data, and we can check if they are still safe, or do they have a recurrency of their disease. So we need, of course, both. It's the same you said, but I'm with you, Domenico. In Basel, it's not only a good cluster or good place. In my eyes, it's one of the best place in the world. I'm not modest here, but I think it's true, because
I'm not smiling because I'm on the camera.
I have so many great minds around me, and I can join them so fast and easy. And we have a place like this place, where we have a platform where different organizations like industry, academia, our university, University of Applied Sciences, foundations. We have many foundations here in Basel with an interest in health, with an interest in sustainability. And we have a place here where we can collaborate without any constraints and interferences, economic interferences. So this was missing, and now we have it, and we should use it. And of course, I would prefer to last year when we met in the Aqua, and all these people who are now looking on the screen to us, I could say with a glass of wine or beer, hello. And I remember we did 1-2 projects, we started projects. I met people, we started projects which are now interesting, innovative, disruptive projects for big industry. So, I mean, we have to meet. Spirit is not because of architecture in the room. It is because of the people who have the spirit and who develop a spirit in a community. And this is what we need, and this is what we have created here. And that's the reason why we are the winning team.
In the preparation with Anja and Johannes, we had the same term coming up with the third place, right? The place where we can meet and discuss and innovate. Maybe Anja, if you have a perspective on the third place.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I actually want to continue on what you just said. I mean, we have a cluster over here, and now we have the opportunity to meet both physically and digitally. So actually, we also have an opportunity to join other forces, to join forces with other clusters worldwide. So that's actually one of the merits that I found over the past few weeks, that even people in other time zones, other countries are just a click away. So that's actually an opportunity also for the cluster here in Basel to join forces with other like-minded people. Yeah. Even though it's more difficult to meet physically, but still you have this opportunity today. Coming back to your question about the third place, that's also something that we are thinking about at SBB. Of course, we have many people going through our train stations every day now, unfortunately coming back slowly, but this place is somewhere where you can meet and have an easy coffee and you can work and so on. So this is also something that we would like to establish further in the future, have the train station as a third place, more or less. But of course, we're competing with other third places because you can more or less work anywhere nowadays, as Corona has shown. We can work wherever we want. So it is, for us at SBB, is very important. How do we design third places at our train stations to make them very, well, beneficial to all those people coming there? And it's a matter of designing the spaces from an architectural point of view, but also creating these like coffee machine meetings by having the right infrastructure in place.
I think it's interesting that third place popped up in your pre-conversations as well. For me, actually, this whole third place is something the term showed up on my radar for the first time in a discussion that was about retail and the future of retail, right? So the third place was coined as the future strategy of shopping malls in a digital time where a lot more of the actual shopping happens online. And so, shopping centers become like a 30% entertainment and food-oriented venue instead of being 90% shops, right? And I think it's very much a blueprint for what will happen in the post-corona work environment, with the competition on where's the person going to sit. It's like a competition for attention of the person working, and it's very similar. It's the digital pressure that's being put on the workplace, and the workplace has to say, okay, I'm not about desks anymore. I'm about something else. I'm about meeting rooms, exchange rooms, etc. So, with the help of Hans-Florian Zeilhofer, the first thing we actually built on BaseLink, in the venue where we're building the Switzerland Innovation Park, is we built a beer garden. And it's called Hortus. Everybody please go there. It's a great place, and the guy is working hard. Despite Corona, everybody's in home office, so he's not over full right now. But that was the nucleus, because we said we needed to make something happen sur place, which brings people together, and because that is the nucleus of innovation, bringing people together, right?
Right, and people like it. We meet there every day. And the second place we are now installing there is a virtual and augmented reality meeting room. Yep. And it's immersive, so that we are here on one side and we are in a room, and on the other room, in the same room, are people in another continent. And we share our voices, but we share also our emotions. We are in one room. And this is what this will be as an impact, or also problems in our work. We don't know, but we know it will have an impact. And we have to guide it. We have to be on the top of these new developments. Because, and this was for me the main message from Stefan's talk, two terms. One was it's human-centered, so it should be solving problems for the human being. And the second one was in an ecosystem-like. And here I'm with you. We have an advantage in Basel because it's not a 10 million city. It's a small city. We are like a nutshell, like a pilot for the big ones. We can show in a smart city lab how it will work on a big smart city. We shouldn't make a silo for energy, for mobility, for health. We have to develop from scratch the ecosystem. And this is like in innovation. We don't know the result, but we have to start and find the right way.
Sorry, I have to jump in on this one since he was promoting Smart City Lab. I want to stress I'm not giving him money to promote the Smart City Lab. I'm very glad you see this chance that we are having, and we've been building up the Smart City Lab Basel since April 2019, and it's an open space where people can invent new solutions in terms of smart city, and this is a very broad topic, so everybody is welcome because smart city is coming from a mobility perspective, but also from an urban design perspective, and those are the main pillars that SBB is having in there. But then we have lots of other topics, including health and life sciences, of course, which is very important to Basel. And so with this place, we hope to draw together different partners, ideally also from different clusters, to create synergies in this place and invent what we will need in the future in this very small, you coined this term earlier, blueprint, and then scale it up to actually, like for SPB, use it in our real estate developments or mobility solutions.
I think it's interesting. I mean, Hans-Florian, you said before, it wasn't the architecture that creates innovation, it's the people inside. You're referring now to smart city. I think it's a little bit like smart city is the operating system, iOS or Windows or whatever. The person sitting in front of the computer is ultimately the most important thing, because that's still where the ideas come from, and the hardware is still important, I think. And I'm not saying that architecture breeds innovation, but it can do a lot to stop innovation if it's done wrong.
Yeah.
And I think what's really important is we have to try to, when we're building the Switzerland Innovation Park, the grid, the architecture has to be communicative as well. The OS, the operating system, has to help. We have to have a precise cluster of companies that come there, that like each other, that like to work with each other. That's the human factor. And the architecture has to enable communication. So that's why the virtual room has to be back to back with the beer garden.
Yeah.
And that's why, the structure of the grid is a permeable and transparent structure almost.
I have an additional form, but before, I want to jump in on this. A friend of mine lives in San Francisco, and he lives in a house with 6 or 9 parties. Some are single, some have family with kids, so it's a mixture of all socioeconomic situation. And the house, I think, has 9 parties. All of them work for different companies. In the center of the house, they have created a working space for themselves. So they don't go to work to the Apples of this world. They go work in that working space in the same building, work there for different companies, which means that they're working on their home office. They are collaboratively solving the problems. I don't even know whether the employer knows that. a completely different form. And of course, I asked him, does it work? And apparently it does work. Of course, there's some Chinese walls to keep it. It's a completely different form to what we have here. A very private setting, a very small setting, a very different type of home office variation, which is also quite, I've never seen that in Europe. I've never seen that in Switzerland. A friend of mine lives in San Francisco. It's in the middle of town, and it apparently works very well. I don't know what happens if they are in personal troubles one day and how they're going to split up, but so far it works. The reason why I'm raising that is because my personal jury on home office is not out yet, I have to say. It did work. Of course, I run a few companies, and the first concern was, does it work? Is the work going to get done? And are we going to be productive? My observation is some companies have shown short-term higher productivities, others stable, some less productivity. So it's a bit different from type of companies. The question, of course, now is it sustainable, this setup? Because frankly speaking, when I hear, we've heard it from Stefan, somebody from Novartis going on trip, ending up in Bali and telling the employer that now he or she wants to work from Bali, one has to be very careful about that, because you may become completely interchangeable as an employee, and eventually you may become completely interchangeable as an employer. And I think that jury is not out. I don't exactly know what exactly compensating management and organizational elements you need to build up. But one has to be also careful that you are not becoming a commodity in front of the screen, and the company doesn't become a commodity on the screen in the other direction. You still have to differentiate yourself. You still have to invest in a number of elements to that. So my jury on home office is not out yet. We will see how sustainable it is. It served us well, but I think a number of more elements are needed to make it successful.
But maybe some elements, maybe also for Karin, right? So what are these elements that will help you differentiate yourselves to make sure that the employees are faithful to you, right? Following the question you had.
Question to me?
Yes.
I don't know. At the moment, we are still in a limbo phase. You know, the companies have not moved into a new reality. Companies are enabling home offices working. Some are having now a split mode. We've heard from Novartis that they are going to be more flexible. So we are still in a transition phase where everybody is trying to cope with the current situation. We don't know when the current situation is over. We don't know when the crisis is over, and we don't know how the new normal will look like. And the question, therefore, is what do companies need to do to sustain home office or not in a way that it creates still a bonding between the employer and the employee? And I don't have the answer for that yet. But that's, I think, the danger, and I think the aspect which is beyond the crisis.
Yeah, I think we just started the journey and finding out where it will lead us. I think the nirvana of distributed work is still a long way out, and we're not there yet. And I think, as you said before, I think the combination is the key to how we can work together. But it's most important, as you said, that we have meeting spaces where we can bring together. And I think a challenging point will also be for HR departments and for their people. It has some legal aspects as well. If you have distributed work all around the world, how do you create teamwork, a team feeling? I think these are challenging questions that will be solved, I think, in the future. I think it's a super interesting concept, but at the end we're social people, and we need a place to come together, and that place, I think, needs to be inspiring for all of us, and so that innovation can take place.
But what does that mean, inspiring? Maybe to you, to yourself, and to Johannes.
Yeah,
so you are in space. What does that mean, an inspiring space, right?
It has to do with architecture. I believe you said that as well. I think it has to do with architecture, and architecture can hinder inspiration, I think, by being closed off, etc. I think this is also a journey, as we saw in Stefan Sigri's presentation, a journey that architecture will go, and we will learn from that. I think openness is very important.
And if it's a big company, a corporate company, which a corporate design with where every picture on the wall is fixed and nobody can change it. This is for a big company, and a small company has other needs, and a startup has again other needs. And what I learned from the very early startups, or even research groups who were in founding situation, the best room for them was an empty room where they could build their environment themselves. And one had a bicycle in, and another one an old desk. And so it was, I think, inspiring them to create also their environment where they want to work, where they like to work, where they have inspiration.
So that's why we're building the innovation garage on on the Basel Area site, which is also a room for, and obviously you will be the one to profit with your startups. And also Switzerland Innovation Park will have events there. I think the important thing is that there's a shift from working where you have to work to working where you want to work, right? And that's where the competition starts. So where do I want to work? And I mean, I think we've had enough experience with home office now to know that not everybody wants to work at home all the time. And so that's
I
where
can confirm that.
you can confirm. Well, me too. And so it depends on if I have the choice. Let's say a lot of companies will leave their employees with the choice where they want to work, except if they work in a lab, right? And so they will start to differentiate and start to find out, where do I want to work? And this is not new. This is something, employer branding and the whole generation XYZ thing with, I want a purpose-driven workplace, etc. This is just another step in that direction where work is not a place anymore. And I choose my employer by not simply what his brand is like, what the company's like, what the people are like, but also now what the workplace is like. And I think this will put pressure on companies that, that right now live in cheap, corrugated iron, 60s working houses, a kind of sweatshop style. They will not be able to deliver that kind of quality. And we just opened our own office in St. Gallen, which we rebuilt in a former cinema, and so we have a restaurant in the ground floor, our own restaurant, and it has 15 points Gomio now from last month, so that was a big success. So it's probably the best cantina there is in St. Gallen, and it's great. That's where we have our coffee. There's no more coffee machines up on the floor, and stuff like that makes you want to go back to work after a couple of days of working elsewhere.
I think that's what actually makes a difference. You need some elements that draw people back to the office, because I can definitely say my own home office is not as technically equipped, and also not from an architectural perspective ideally suited to work there all the time. So I'm happy to go back now, because that's where I have the infrastructure, as you said, maybe AR and other opportunities that technology is giving us nowadays. And we talked about this when we had the preparation. It's not about that we had non-smart work before. The technology is just giving us new opportunities to make our work even smarter nowadays. And that also applies to the concept of smart city. It's not that we've built non-smart cities before. It's just the technology that enables us to make cities even smarter nowadays. So we're looking into the future. Apart from this physical aspect or infrastructural aspect, I do want to also emphasize the importance of getting people together, getting the right people together. And that's something what also makes me going back to work. And if we talk about the Smart City Lab, it's a freight terminal. It even is nowadays. It's more or less a mixed use Smart City Lab and freight terminal. So this place was not designed for mind work, more or less. And so we're just transforming it into this place, but we're also working successfully already now, because it's the people that come into this freight terminal that make it a smart city lab even today, although we've probably not as equipped as we should be, as will be the new place you are building over here.
But one of the takeaways, of course, for employees is that they have to invest in software, in hardware. They have to be high end. They have to be flexible. They have to sort of not define the future, but they have to enable the future. I think the employer or the employee workforce will define what the right way for them is to work. And as an employer, you have to, instead of predefining, I think, the outcome, you have to enable the outcome without saying this is the right way, this is the wrong way. But things will change. I agree with that. I mean, technology has made dramatic boosts. I mean, we all remember the tech boom in the year 2000, where books came out about the virtual company. Nothing has happened, but I think one key element is technology has advanced dramatically over the last 20 years. So something will happen, but employer need to be investing smart and have to think about it. It becomes a competitive advantage in terms of how are you going to engage your employee workforce with your workspace.
And it will constantly change on top. It's not just we have to redefine it for once. It will be, the changes will come much faster than they have. And,
people always ask me if during the Corona crisis, you know, if we're even going to be able to fill the Grid Innovation Park. And my response is usually, well, you know, people are actually coming. People want to come in. We're actually right on track. And why is that? Most of them aren't growing. Most of them are consolidating multiple locations and upgrading to the grid, right? So yes, nobody in this time, and this started before Corona with flexible desks and everything. I don't think many companies are growing, but they are upgrading their workplace, and they want to get everybody together. They realize the fact that having everybody together will make them more dynamic. So that's why they come, and that's why for us we're happy. You know, they're filling up very well.
Yeah, and also to have a diversity in there, because rocket science is not in an ivory. It can be in an ivory tower, or not only. It's because we have physicists, medical doctors, computer scientists, biologists, chemists working together on one problem. And this is inspiring and helps solve problems and creates innovation and creates new startups. So we need this in our new place, and we will have it because we have dedicated space for that.
And we are here on the Novartis campus, and Novartis has decided to open up the campus. We're part of that. I mean, that's exactly what drives them. I mean, the diversity in addition to the diversity Novartis has and the interactions they will have with new companies, new people, new technologies, new opportunities. I think it will be a significant new element for them. So obviously also Novartis is going the next step, which is not having a flexible closed workspace, but now they are actually having a flexible open workspace. They're opening the campus up. So it's the next step.
Yeah. And we also see it here in our space. I mean, we have an open co-working area where different companies from maybe the same focus, the same field, but they can co-create together. They can meet together with also Novartis staff maybe. So this is really, I think, the future, and necessary that we provide these spaces where people can come together and create something new.
Yeah, and what's the spirit to create something new? What's the basic for this? You have to have passion for that,
Of course.
empathy.
Of course.
You have to love your work, and maybe it's great to do it from the Bahamas, but I see there's some problems also in the balance.
Yeah.
I have to be passionate here. Huh?
And physical presence, I agree with you, is important, that we can physically meet and be here.
Yeah.
as well. And that's what's also Switzerland Innovation Park at the Grid will be all about, that people do physically come together and create something new and have the chance to meet there and be productive.
Yeah.
I think this is hard. This is difficult. Just online. I think it's just not possible.
So you can see we have a lot of passion here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you realize it, but we do.
Thank you very much. I think that's a good time to start closing the panel, and I would like to give the opportunity to each of you to give one statement you would like to give to the public about how we will navigate this future of work. Just one statement. I'll start on your side, Domenico.
Invest. As a company, you have to invest in your workspace, in your workforce, in your assets, and for the government and for the countries, invest in technology, in education and infrastructure. 5G, we need 5G, we need high-end technology. We need to become again a bit more technological affine. I think we tend to be in a welfare bubble, but we have to go out and fight for our welfare. We are in an incredible privileged situation, but it comes without, you need to fight for it, and we need to be more technical affine and innovative, open-minded.
Thank you.
I'll take Hans-Florian Zeilhofer's sentence. Basel Area is the best place in the world for innovation and for
you
life
will get
sciences.
the beer afterwards.
No, but that's just. I mean, we Swiss, we don't sell our assets like the Americans do. So let's bring in some American flavor here. So it's the best place in the world, and I think everybody should come out to Riedle and see the building site and what's going on there, and see what the grid looks like and the staircases of the grid, and it's amazing.
I agree with that. I believe also that the way we work will keep on changing. We will need infrastructure that is flexible, that adapts with us, that evolves with us, and we need spaces that bring people together, that lets us be inspired and creative and create new things. I think that's important.
Yeah. I say, come and see, join us.
Yeah.
We will invite you, and you will see that's reality. It's under construction, and you will love it. And then you will invest because you like it and you want to stay with us and to develop with us.
Thank you.
It's getting more difficult towards this end to actually make a statement. I do want to say that I think it's very important for all of us to take the good points out of this Corona crisis, because it has forced us to work more digitally, and there are very positive aspects to it. As I said in the beginning, it's the good balance between working physically and digitally, and I think we should all keep the good parts of the working digitally part and take it further, and don't fall back into the old routine once this Corona crisis will hopefully soon end.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the panel for the great discussion.